It started with a scent. Not perfume, not soap. Something off. Faint but wrong, clinging to the fabric of our sheets like a ghost of someone else. I didn't recognize it, but my body reacted before my mind could. A slow, creeping sickness coiled in my stomach, primal and unshakable. Emily had just come out of the shower. She always showered before bed. But tonight, something about it felt rehearsed, like she was trying to wash something away. Her hair was still damp, the ends darkening the collar of my old t-shirt she liked to sleep in. She slid under the covers without a word. Normally, she'd press her cold feet against my legs and laugh when I flinched. But tonight, she didn't touch me. I turned on my side to look at her. She was awake, wide-eyed, stiff, staring at the ceiling. I waited for her to say something, anything, but she just lay there, motionless, like a doll someone had carelessly tossed onto the bed. Emily. My own voice sounded distant. She flinched, barely, but I saw it. What's wrong? She swallowed, and for a moment, I thought she wasn't going to answer. Then, without looking at me, she whispered, "Nothing, just tired." It was a lie, a bad one. Something sharp and electric shot through me. My mouth went dry. I reached for her, just to touch her arm, to ground myself in something familiar, something real. She jerked away like I'd burned her. And that was it. That was the moment my entire world shifted half an inch to the left, just enough to throw everything out of alignment. I stared at her, heart pounding. Emily. Silence. I sat up, my mind racing through every possible reason for the way she was acting. Was she sick? Did something happen? But deep down, I already knew. I reached over to grab her phone from the nightstand. She lunged for it at the same time. Too slow. My pulse hammered as I turned on the screen. A single notification stared back at me. Just one. But it might as well have been a gunshot to the chest. Had a great time tonight. Can't stop thinking about you. The contact name? Just initials. MT. The sound that came out of my throat wasn't even human. A bitter, hollow laugh, sharp enough to cut through the suffocating quiet of the room. Are you serious? My voice shook. Are you actually serious right now? Emily's face went pale, then red, then something else entirely, something I couldn't place. Not guilt, not shame, annoyance, like I was the one ruining the night. Give me my phone. I didn't move. Was empty. My fingers tightened around the device. She sighed. Rubbing her temples like this was some minor inconvenience. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. She hesitated, just for a second, but it was long enough. I swung my legs over the bed, shoving the phone into my pocket. My skin was buzzing, my mind flashing between every single sign I had ignored. The late nights, the sudden coldness, the new lingerie I never saw her wear. And now this. Emily sat up too, voice sharp. Give me my damn phone, Nick. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in 6 years, I saw her for what she was. A liar. A stranger. Something inside me cracked wide open. I stood up. I needed to. If I stayed in that bed for another second, I might have lost it completely. My hands were shaking, but I clenched them into fists, forcing myself to breathe. Emily was still sitting there, staring at me with that infuriating mix of defiance and irritation, like I was the one making a scene over nothing, like I was being unreasonable for caring that my wife had just been out with another man and then crawled into bed with me as if nothing had happened. I'll ask you one more time, I said, my voice low, controlled barely. Who the hell is MT? She exhaled loudly, throwing her hands up. Nick, oh my God, you're overreacting. I laughed. I actually laughed. A short, humorless sound that made her flinch. Overreacting, right? Because finding a text like that from some random guy, right after your wife flinches away from your touch, is totally normal. I pulled the phone out of my pocket and held it up. So if I open this, I'm not going to find more messages? Not going to see any calls? Any pictures? Emily's jaw tightened. Give me my phone, Nick. I didn't move, didn't blink, just unlocked it. She hadn't even changed her passcode. Either she was careless or she really thought I was that much of an idiot. Her breath hitched. That's when I knew. There were more messages. A lot more. My stomach turned as I scrolled. Long threads of texts. some deleted but not enough to erase the truth. A truth so disgusting I could barely hold the phone without wanting to throw it across the room. MT wasn't just some guy. He was a regular. Someone she'd been talking to for weeks, maybe months. Some texts were short, just flirtation. Others were worse. Much worse. Explicit. Detailed. Memories of places they'd been, things they'd done. Times when she'd told me she was out with friends. Times when she'd come home late, her hair messy, her voice just a little off. Times when she'd kissed me after being with him. I felt sick. I looked up at her. She was watching me carefully, but her face wasn't panicked. She wasn't crying, wasn't apologizing. She was calculating. And then, as if this entire moment couldn't get any worse, she rolled her eyes. "Nick," she huffed, crossing her arms. "Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. She could have said anything. Could have begged, explained, cried, hell, even lied. But she just sat there, acting like I was the crazy one for catching her. Something inside me snapped. I dropped the phone onto the bed. "Wow," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "I mean, wow, this is who you are? This is what our marriage means to you?" Emily groaned, dragging her hands down her face. "Oh my God. You're acting like I murdered someone." I took a step forward. "You might as well have." That got her attention. For the first time, she actually looked uncomfortable. Not guilty, not ashamed. Just annoyed that I wasn't reacting the way she wanted me to. "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "People make mistakes, Nick." I let out a sharp breath, shaking my head. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. This was a choice. Every single time. She scoffed. Actually scoffed. "Oh, please. Like you're some perfect husband? Like you never screwed up." I laughed again. Couldn't help it. "Screwed up how, Emily? What did I do? Work overtime so we could afford a better house? Plan trips you never wanted to go on? What? Tell me. Where exactly did I go wrong?" Silence. She didn't have an answer. Because there wasn't one. Because this wasn't my fault. For the first time since I'd read those texts, I felt something stronger than betrayal. Clarity. I turned, heading for the door. Emily shot up from the bed. "Where are you going?" I paused, hand on the doorknob, and looked back at her. This woman I had loved. This woman who had just destroyed everything. I let out a slow, steady breath. Anywhere but here. And then I walked out that I didn't know where I was going. I just had to move. Had to get out of that house before I said or did something I couldn't take back. My mind was burning. Racing through every single lie Emily had told me. Every excuse I had swallowed whole. The cool night air hit me like a slap when I stepped outside. My legs carried me to the car out of instinct, but my hands shook as I pulled the keys from my pocket. I climbed in, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. I could still see her in my mind, sitting there on our bed, completely unfazed, like she hadn't just ripped my entire reality apart. I didn't start the car right away. I just sat there, heart hammering, trying to process what the hell had just happened. The texts, the months of lies. Who the hell was he? Where did she meet him? Did I know him? Was he someone we had laughed with at a party? Someone who shook my hand and looked me in the eyes while he was sleeping with my wife? I squeezed my eyes shut. No, don't go there. Not yet. I needed facts, answers, truth. And there was only one way to get them. I yanked out my phone and scrolled back to her messages. I wasn't just looking for their conversations. I was looking for patterns, times, dates. And then I saw it. Tuesday nights. For the last 3 months, Emily had girls' night with her friend Rachel every Tuesday. I never questioned it because Rachel was real, the kind of friend who posted everything online. But the thing was, Emily was never in her photos. And the worst part? The one time I had actually asked about it, Emily had laughed. "Oh, I always leave early. You know I don't like getting tagged in pictures." Lies. Lies on top of lies. I opened my GPS history, searched for any odd locations in the past few months. And there it was. A bar across town. One I'd never been to. One Emily had no reason to go to. My blood ran cold. It was late, but I didn't care. I needed to see it. Needed to know if this was just some random place, or if it was their place. The car roared to life, tires screeching as I pulled out of the driveway. I drove fast. Too fast. But I couldn't slow down. Not when my entire life had just turned into a crime scene, and I was still standing in the wreckage, trying to understand how the hell I didn't see it coming. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot of a dimly lit bar called The Clover. A typical dive, neon signs, half-empty lot, the smell of cigarettes in the air. I sat there for a moment, staring at the entrance. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what I was expecting to find. A clue? A sign? A goddamn answer? But then, a man walked out. Tall, dark-haired, maybe mid-30s, and way too familiar. My entire body went rigid. No F***ing way. ***. Because I knew exactly who he was. And suddenly, everything made sense. I froze. The man walking out of the bar, tall, dark-haired, mid-30s, was someone I'd seen 100 times before. Someone who had been in my house, who had smiled at me, shaken my hand, called me buddy like he wasn't screwing my wife behind my back. Mark Thompson. A friend. Not a close one, but close enough. He worked with Emily. I had met him at office parties. Heard his name in passing when she complained about work. Mark is so annoying sometimes. Mark never shuts up. The same way someone pretends to hate something they secretly love. Of course. A hot wave of rage rolled through me. So intense I had to grip the steering wheel just to stop myself from getting out and beating him into the pavement. Mark was on the phone, laughing. He looked so casual, like he hadn't just destroyed my life. And then he kissed someone. Not Emily. A different woman. Some blonde I didn't recognize. Her arms wrapped around his neck like she belonged there. Like she had no idea he was already someone else's problem. I almost laughed. Unbelievable. Not only was he cheating with my wife, he was cheating on my wife too. I watched them for a few seconds, my mind racing. What now? What the hell do I do now? I could confront him. Rip him apart right here in the parking lot. But what would that do, really? He was just a symptom. The disease was waiting for me at home. Probably pissed off that I had walked out instead of just accepting her betrayal like an idiot. No, I needed more than this. I needed her to confess. I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo of Mark and his mystery woman, and drove off. When I got home, the lights were still on. Emily was waiting. She was on the couch, arms crossed, foot tapping against the floor. The moment I walked in, she let out a sharp breath, shaking her head like I was the one who had done something wrong. "Are you done with your tantrum?" she asked. Tantrum. I had proof now. I had seen it. There was no more room for doubts, no space for lies. But still, I wanted to hear it from her. I leaned against the door, arms crossed. "You know what I was just doing?" Emily scoffed. "Oh, let me guess. Driving around like a dramatic little." I was at the Clover. Silence. It happened fast. A flicker. Just a split-second shift in her expression. Shock, fear, before she locked it down. Before she rolled her eyes and forced out a laugh. "Oh, for God's sake, Nick. Stalking me now." She was good. I had to give her that. Even when caught, even when she knew I had seen through her, she didn't break. I pulled out my phone. Showed her the picture. Mark. His arm around another woman. His mouth on hers. His betrayal on full display. Emily's face went white. She blinked, looking from the phone to me, then back again. "What is this?" I let the silence stretch. Let the weight of it sink in. Then I smiled. "Your boyfriend is a cheater." She swallowed. Hard. "That's not, Nick. That's not what it looks like." "Oh." I tilted my head. "Because what it looks like is that you've been screwing a guy who screws everyone." Her mouth opened. Closed. She had nothing. And for the first time tonight, I had everything. Emily's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She had nothing. No excuse. No lie quick enough to slip past the evidence staring her in the face. I should have felt satisfied. I had her. I had caught her in the middle of a burning wreck of her own making. And now there was nowhere left to run. But the satisfaction never came. Because she wasn't ashamed. She wasn't sorry. She was calculating. Her eyes darted back and forth. Brain spinning like a slot machine. Searching for the right words to twist this into something else. I could see it happening. The gears turning. The damage control activating. I refused to give her the chance. "You gonna say something, Emily?" I asked, voice sharp. Or are you just hoping I'll drop dead before I make you admit it? Her lips pressed together. Then, in a stunning display of pure delusion, she scoffed. Scoffed. Like I had just accused her of forgetting to take out the trash instead of blowing up our entire marriage. You're such an idiot, she muttered under her breath. I laughed. Short, sharp, humorless. Come again. She rolled her eyes, like I was wasting her time. You think you're so smart, Nick? Running around playing detective? Jesus, I can't believe you actually drove all the way to that bar just to… What? Catch me? Embarrass me? You don't even know what you're talking about. I stared at her. You don't even care? Do you? That shut her up for a second. Her fingers tightened around her arms. A quick flash of something real, but not guilt. Not regret. It was annoyance. Like I was inconveniencing her by not just shutting up and letting her get away with it. Nick, she sighed, slow and deliberate, like she was explaining something simple to a child. It's not that serious. Not that serious. I actually felt my vision blur for a second. I had never understood blinding rage until this exact moment. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. So let me get this straight. Lying to me? Sneaking around? Sleeping with someone else? That's not serious. Emily sighed again. Rubbing her temples like this was exhausting her. Oh, stop being so dramatic. It wasn't even that big of a deal. I almost couldn't believe it. 6 years. 6 years. And this was who she was. A selfish, lying, unapologetic excuse for a person. I inhaled through my nose, trying to stay calm, trying to keep myself from screaming at the top of my lungs. So what then? I asked, voice cold. Were you ever planning on telling me? Or was I just supposed to play the role of clueless husband while you ran around with Mark until you got bored? She hesitated. That was answer enough. But still, she doubled down. You're acting like I don't love you, she snapped, eyes narrowing. Like I don't care about you. But I do, Nick. I do. I held up a hand. Don't even finish that sentence. Because I knew what was coming. I had seen this kind of garbage excuse before. The whole, I still love you, but I needed excitement speech. And I would not sit here and let her say it to my face. Her jaw clenched, frustration flickering in her eyes. She wasn't used to this. To me standing my ground. She had spent so much time lying, so much time twisting me into a fool who would just believe her no matter what, that she wasn't prepared for me to see her for what she really was. And God, it was disgusting. I shook my head. I don't even know who the hell you are anymore. Emily's face twisted. Oh, grow up, Nick. I froze. She saw it, saw my entire body go still, and smirked, like she had won, like she thought she could break me. And that was the moment I knew. I was done. Something inside me snapped. Not in the way I expected. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't punch a hole in the wall like some cliché heartbroken idiot. No, I went cold. I stopped caring. Emily could see it. The smirk started to falter. Her confidence wavered as she watched me change right in front of her. I exhaled slowly, then nodded. Okay. That one word sent something like fear flickering through her expression. Okay? She repeated, guarded. Yeah. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. I'm done. Her eyebrows shot up. What do you mean, done? I smiled. Not a nice smile. A dangerous one. The kind you give someone before you ruin them. I mean, you can have Mark. You can have whatever low-life version of happiness you think you're gonna get from sneaking around like a pathetic, unfaithful piece of garbage. Her mouth opened, closed, then anger. Oh, don't act like you're some saint. Nick, you're not perfect either. I blinked. You're right. I'm not. I took a step forward, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. But you know what I didn't do, Emily? I didn't betray you. I didn't treat you like a goddamn idiot. I didn't crawl into bed with someone else and then come home and pretend to love you. She swallowed. I kept going. I didn't lie. I didn't sneak around. I didn't look my spouse in the eyes and insult their intelligence while I ran off to get my kicks behind their back. Her arms crossed again, her walls shooting back up. It's not that simple. It is. I cut in. It really, really is. She clenched her jaw. Nick, be serious. You're not just gonna walk away from this. I laughed. Actually laughed. Emily? I said, shaking my head. I already did. I turned and started walking toward the bedroom. Where are you going? She called after me, voice sharp, demanding. To pack. Pack? She practically shrieked the word. Are you kidding me? Where the hell are you gonna go? I shrugged. Anywhere that's not here. She stomped forward, her voice rising. So that's it? You're just gonna run away? I whipped around so fast she stumbled back. Run away. My voice was ice. No, Emily. You ran away. Every single time you left this house to be with him, you ran away from our marriage. Every lie you told, every time you smiled at me knowing damn well what you were doing, you ran. I'm just finally letting you have what you wanted. Her face twisted, and for a second, just a second, I thought she might actually cry. But she didn't, because Emily didn't care about losing me. She cared about losing control of me. Nick, come on, she said, trying a softer voice now, stepping closer. You don't have to do this. We can. I held up a hand. Nope, she scowled. You're seriously going to throw everything away over one mistake? I tilted my head. Was it just one? She hesitated. Too long. I smiled. Yeah, that's what I thought. I walked into the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and started throwing clothes in. Emily lost it. Nick, stop. You're not thinking straight. I zipped up the suitcase. I've never thought clearer in my entire life. She grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin. I swear to God, if you walk out that door. I yanked free and stepped back, holding up both hands. Careful, Emily. She went rigid. I stared at her. Long, hard. Let her feel it. Let her feel the weight of what she had done. Then, finally, I said the words that ended it all. You don't get to threaten me. Not anymore. And with that, I walked out. I expected her to chase me. To scream. To cry. To beg. She didn't. I walked out the front door, suitcase in hand, and for the first time in 6 years, I felt free. The night air hit my skin, cool and sharp, clearing my head like a slap to the face. I stood there for a second, breathing it in. Then, before I could think too much about it, I threw my suitcase into the car, got in, and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to go. Emily didn't call, didn't text, nothing. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't upset that I left. She was just pissed she didn't get the last word. I drove for about 10 minutes before my hands stopped shaking. My heart was still hammering, my head still buzzing. But there was something else creeping in now, something strange and unfamiliar. Relief, not sadness, not regret. Relief, because I had been holding on to nothing for years. Holding on to a version of Emily that didn't exist. A fantasy. A memory. The woman I thought I married, the woman who used to love me if she ever did, was gone. Or maybe she was never real in the first place. I kept driving, pulled into a gas station, parked in the farthest, darkest corner and just sat there, hands gripping the wheel, staring into nothing. And that's when it hit me. What now? I was out. I had finally done it. But now I was homeless, sitting in a parking lot at 2 a.m. with nowhere to go, no plan. No idea what the hell to do next. A laugh bubbled up before I could stop it. I must have looked insane, sitting alone in my car, laughing into the dark. But really, what else was there to do? I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts. My brain was too fried to think straight, so I just called the first name that made sense. Ryan, my best friend. The guy who had been telling me for years that Emily wasn't the person I thought she was. The guy I had defended her against more times than I could count. He answered on the second ring. Dude, it's 2 a.m. I let out a breath. She cheated. A pause. Then, I'm sorry, she what? I pinched the bridge of my nose. You were right. About everything. Ryan inhaled sharply. Where are you? Gas station. No idea where I'm going. He didn't even hesitate. You're coming here. Right now. I hesitated. Ryan, I don't wanna. Shut up and get over here. I'm making coffee. I exhaled. Okay. And for the first time all night, I felt safe. Ryan's apartment was small, cluttered, and smelled like beer and laundry detergent. It was perfect. He opened the door the second I knocked, wearing basketball shorts and a hoodie, hair sticking up in 5 different directions. He took one look at my face and muttered, "Jesus Christ." "Yeah," I sighed, stepping inside. Ryan shut the door, shook his head, and pointed to the couch. "Sit. Talk." So I did. I told him everything. The text. The confrontation. Mark. How Emily didn't even care. By the time I finished, Ryan was pacing like a caged animal, muttering curses under his breath. "Bro, I fing knew it," he finally exploded. "I fing knew it. And you." He pointed a furious finger at me. "You defended her. You made me feel like an *** hole for suspecting it." I groaned, rubbing my face. "Yeah, I get it, you told me so." No, you don't get it," Ryan snapped. "Because I actually liked you guys together. I wanted to be wrong, but she was always just off. Like, she never actually liked you, dude. She liked being in control of you." I didn't say anything, because I was starting to realize he was right. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "So what now? You staying here?" I let out a breath. "I guess, just for a few days, till I figure things out." "Dude, stay as long as you need. Seriously." He grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, tossed me one, and collapsed into the chair across from me. I caught the beer, cracked it open, and took a long sip. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel trapped. For the first time, I wasn't trying to fix something that was already broken. I was free. The first thing I did the next morning was call a lawyer. Ryan had already left for work by the time I woke up, but he left a note on the kitchen counter. "Take whatever you need. Also, if Emily shows up, don't answer the door. Or do. And record it. Could be fun." I actually laughed. A short, tired laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. I grabbed my phone, found a divorce lawyer with solid reviews, and made the call. A receptionist picked up. "Harrison and Tate Law Offices. How can I help you?" I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. Saying it out loud made it real. "Yeah, I need a divorce attorney." The words tasted strange, foreign, but at the same time, right? "All right," the receptionist said smoothly, like she heard this 50 times a day. "Is this an amicable separation?" I let out a sharp breath. "No, not even close." We set up a consultation for later in the week, and when I hung up, a strange feeling settled over me. Relief. Again. I had spent years thinking divorce was the worst possible outcome. A sign of failure. A last resort. But now, divorce wasn't the failure. Staying in a marriage with someone like Emily, that would have been the failure. I was already halfway through my coffee when my phone buzzed. Emily. I stared at the screen. Her first attempt at contact. No texts. No calls last night. She had let me go, at least for a few hours. Now, the game was beginning. I didn't pick up. Let it go to voicemail. She called again. Then finally a text popped up. "Emily." "Nick." "Answer the phone. We need to talk." I stared at it. A week ago, I would have answered in a heartbeat. I would have jumped at the chance to work things out. Now, I put the phone down and took another sip of coffee. She could wait. 3 hours later, she showed up. I heard the knock from the couch. 2 sharp hits against the wood, followed by the doorbell ringing 3 times in a row. I didn't move. Then my phone buzzed again. "Emily, I know you're in there. Open the door, Nick." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. She wasn't going away. I stood, walked over, and opened the door. Emily was standing there, arms crossed, wearing one of those expressions that could flip between sweet and furious in half a second. She looked me up and down, taking in the fact that I was in Ryan's apartment, that I had actually left, that I hadn't come crawling back like she probably assumed I would. "You're being ridiculous," she said, stepping forward like she thought she could walk inside. I didn't move. I didn't open the door wider. Her eyes narrowed. "Nick, let me in." "No." Her mouth tightened. "We need to talk." I leaned against the doorframe. "We are talking," she sighed, shifting tactics. "Can we just—" She glanced behind me, like she was trying to assess the damage. "Can we just sit down? Please?" I almost laughed. Unbelievable. "Emily," I said, voice calm, controlled. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice." Her jaw clenched. "Oh my God, Nick, grow up. We can fix this." I blinked. Fix this. Yes. She threw up her hands. Jesus. It's not like I killed someone. It was a mistake. I tilted my head. Which time? She froze. I let the silence stretch. Let her feel it. Then I stepped forward, dropping my voice to something low and sharp. You weren't sorry, Emily. You weren't even going to tell me. You just got caught. Her eyes flashed. Oh, and you're so perfect, right? I sighed. I was a good husband. Maybe too good. Maybe that's why you got bored. She flinched. For the first time, I saw something crack in her. Good. She deserved to feel it. Emily let out a sharp breath. So, that's it? You're just gonna throw everything away? I met her eyes, holding them steady. You already did. She swallowed. I could see the realization sinking in. She wasn't winning this. Not this time. I let her stand there for another few seconds, waiting for her to say something. Anything. Then I stepped back and closed the door. The moment the door clicked shut, a weight lifted off my chest. Emily was on the other side, probably fuming, probably glaring at the door like she could will it open with sheer entitlement. But it was over. She couldn't talk her way out of this. She couldn't manipulate me into staying stuck in her game. I was out. I heard her let out an angry breath, followed by the sharp click of her heels as she stormed away. A few seconds later, a car door slammed, an engine roared to life, and then silence. She was gone. I stood there for a moment, forehead resting against the wood, letting myself feel the finality of it. Then I laughed, because Jesus Christ, it was finally done. Ryan came home an hour later, a six-pack in one hand, a pizza in the other. He took one look at me, sitting on the couch, staring at nothing, and let out a low whistle. She showed up, didn't she? Yep. He set the pizza down. And, I shrugged, closed the door in her face. Ryan beamed, actually beamed like a proud parent. That's my F***Angie boy. I shook my head, grabbing a beer from the six-pack. It was weird, man. She really thought she could just fix it. Like I was gonna open the door and go, oh, you know what, Emily? You're right, I was totally overreacting. Let's just forget about the fact that you were screwing around behind my back. Ryan popped open his own beer and took a long sip. Women like that, they don't think they can fix it. They think they can fix you, that they can break you down, make you question yourself, make you doubt the fact that you were right all along. And when that doesn't work, they lose their goddamn minds. I took a slow sip. She lost her mind, all right? Ryan grinned. Tell me you got it on camera. I laughed. Didn't need to. She'll try again. His grin widened. Good, because next time, I want to watch. I shook my head, but deep down, I knew he was right. This wasn't the end of Emily. She had lost control, but she wasn't the type to go down quietly. And I had a feeling she wasn't done with me just yet. I was right. Emily wasn't done. The first text came later that night. Emily. Nick, I didn't mean for things to go this way. Please just talk to me. I ignored it. The second one, an hour later, was less patient. Emily. You're really not even going to try? After everything? I turned off my phone. By morning, she had switched tactics. Emily, I hope you're happy. You've completely humiliated me. I never thought you'd be this cruel. Cruel. I was cruel? Not the woman who had lied, cheated, and made a fool out of me. No, she was the victim now. Classic. I showed Ryan the texts over coffee. He snorted. You know what this is, right? I raised an eyebrow. Enlighten me. This is the 5 stages of cheaters. First, they deny. Then they downplay. Then they gaslight you into thinking it was your fault. Then they flip it around and make themselves the victim. And finally, he grabbed my phone and scrolled down. Another text had come through while we were talking. Emily, can we at least just meet? Just once? For closure? Ryan pointed at the screen. Boom. Stage 5. The let's talk trap. I exhaled. Yeah, not happening. But I had to admit, there was a small, ugly part of me that wanted to. Not because I missed her. Not because I wanted to fix things. But because I wanted to watch her squirm. I wanted to hear her say it. Say the words. Say she did it. Say she knew she destroyed everything. Ryan must have read my mind because he smirked. Oh, you're tempted. I shook my head. Not worth it. He nodded approvingly. Good. Because you know what closure really is. I raised an eyebrow. Ryan cracked open a beer. Divorce papers. And that's when I knew. Emily could text all she wanted. She could beg, cry, scream, play the victim. None of it mattered. Because she didn't have power over me anymore. She lost. And I won.